Hey, everybody. I hope this is now recording. It is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. This is ANC 5D's Zoning and Development Committee meeting. We have one item on the agenda at tonight's meeting for a project proposed at in Union Market. And that is the only item on the agenda tonight. So we'll kick it off and I'll turn it over to, I promoted everyone to a panelist so you can all speak up and you want to screen share. I do have a copy of your presentation downloaded to my computer so I can also share it in Drive, or you guys can do it. It's up to you. If one of you want to do it, control it, I'll just promote you to a co-host and you can drive the presentation.
Yeah, I'd love to share the screen and share the presentation that way.
Sure thing. Let me make you a co-host.
Okay.
Do you want to verify it's recording? It says live, and I just wondered if it was actually recording or just streaming.
I should be streaming.
It's streaming. I just didn't know if it was recording. Usually it says something, I thought.
I saw a little note pop up, but maybe it said streaming. I thought it said recording at the top a minute ago.
No, I may have missed it.
Yeah, you could always
hold me to it. I've never done it myself. So.
I think if you just go to YouTube and search for ANC 5D real quick, yeah, actually I can see myself over here near the window. So yeah, it is recording.
Okay.
It's being live streamed to YouTube right now.
Okay. All right. Are you all ready for me? Is it time for me to go ahead and share screen?
Please, actually, first, if you could just introduce all of you so we know who.
Yeah. So I'm Reynolds Allen. I am a managing director at Edens. I'm on the development team. I've been with Edens for 17 years. I have been developing and working on the Union Market project in particular since 2009, so about 14 years. If you're not familiar with Edens, we have been working really in Union Market District since about 2006. We first acquired a couple properties, then went through the small area planning process with the district, Office of Planning and agencies, which was a plan to kind of encourage investment in the area, an area that had once been a really vital and really bright part of what was going on in DC, that had just kind of lacked investment over time. So Edens, we own a number of properties in the area that we've acquired over time and redeveloped. Done renovations to, such as the Union Market Food Hall, which most folks generally know, our Latin American market, La Cosecha on 4th Street, the building with Trader Joe's in the base, in the ground floor, which is the Edison, and a number of other projects. But our offices, just so you know, we are right there in the middle of it all. We sit above Politics and Prose in St. Anselm, the block on 5th Street. And so the site we're going to talk to you about today actually sits directly across the street from that. On the phone with us today is David Lewis from Goulston and Stores. David has helped us with a number of zoning requests in the past over the years. He also put together the Board of Zoning Adjustment application that was filed this Monday. A copy of that application has gone out via email to all ANC commissioners, and we're going to share the presentation portion of that with you all today. But I also have the entire application pulled up if there are any specific technical questions to get into. So anything else before I start sharing my screen? All right, well, we'll jump into it. Feel free to jump in anytime, ask me any questions along the way. I can get a little long-winded at times, so don't hesitate to stop me. Okay, can everybody see my screen now? Great. All right, so the Union Market District, as I mentioned, we've been working on the Union Market District for quite some time now. And let me see if I can get it to change pages. First, we'll just start off with a little site context related to zoning. The site here in red is 1271 5th Street Northeast. It sits fronting 5th Street on the block between 5th and 6th near the corner of Moore Street. It is in the PDR1 zone and surrounded by what was the C3C zone but projects that have gone through PUDs. And a little bit easier to follow here shows you some of those projects surrounding. So again, the site 1271 5th Street. It's a small site. It's about 13,000 land square feet. On the south side, we have 500 Moore Street, which is a developed project by Elcor, who's actually was our partner on the Edison project, the first residential building that we delivered in the Union Market District. And then bordered on the other side by the approved PUD plan project that is a partnership between Gallaudet University and JBG Smith. Our offices, I mentioned, are actually right across the street, are on 5th Street. I'm not sitting in them at the moment, but that is where I sit on a regular basis. Just to give you some other site context, some of the other PUDs that have been approved, and most have been constructed in the last couple of years here in the Union Market District. Just zooming in on the site a little bit more. So if you're familiar with the parking lot in front of the Market building, you'll hear me call it the Market rather than Union Market. It's bordered by that, and as I said, sits on 5th Street with the Elcor project, which is called the Morse, just to the south. Got some photos of the existing building. It's a 2-story yellow CMU block old building. Currently has a gym use, Total Source Fitness, operating within the building, and sits directly adjacent to this Elcor building. Some more just site context photos. Here's the back of the building, and you'll see this in just a second, but this area here is actually designed for service access as an easement between ourselves, Elcor, and Gallaudet JBG Smith for shared access for servicing the entire block off of one access point off of Moore Street versus having multiple curb cuts to service all these buildings. Another pretty picture for you. And now this moves into showing how the site sits and what's the planned massing that's going on around the project. And to be honest, we've looked at this project at the past, and what we originally planned to do was a high density building, mixed use building, residential above retail, coming up to 120 feet, just like the adjacent buildings with Elcor and what Gallaudet and JBG Smith are planning on either side. What we're presenting now is something slightly different. It is a much lower density building, and I'll get into the details of it here in a second. But as we started to revisit this project here earlier this year, we felt like there was an opportunity to do something that didn't necessarily need to maximize out to 120 feet of height, but we thought would bring a really nice relief within the block. And the use in particular, which is a hotel use, really fill out some of what we felt like would be a good use right in the heart of the Union Market District, something different than a residential use, something that we felt would bring a different trip, but also a ground floor that services the entire surrounding community. As I mentioned before, we have an easement in place. So our parcel here, the Edens parcel in blue, the Elcor parcel, this is the easement. Edens provides 10 feet of this easement area here. JBG's property provides 24 feet on this side, and it comes all the way through the Elcor parcel. This is an executed easement agreement we've all agreed to previously to make sure that everybody can be serviced properly. This is a zoning summary table, and what it just highlights is what are the areas that we're asking for special exceptions. There are 5, and I'll come back to these in just a second, but I want to lay out the project a little bit further first. So as I mentioned, we are looking at a hotel project, and for Edens, we are from the start retail developers, and we think about what's happening at the ground floor. We think that what's occurring at the ground floor really sets the community, is what is the most important thing. Nothing taken away from what's happening upstairs, but that ground floor is where we always start our vision. And so our vision for this project is an active ground floor that is not just a hotel lobby as you would traditionally think of one. It is a place that you will folks from the community, not just folks that are visiting the hotel, would come at 8 o'clock in the morning for their coffee, morning meetings, meet people for brunch, meet people for just mid-morning meetings, a place that you can gather and stay from 8 a.m. until late in the evening. And it's really a gathering place for the overall community. Some of the places we've taken our inspiration from are shown here in pictures. And so all the pictures here, just to give you an idea of the type of place that we think that this could feel like. The bottom right is the Soho House in Chicago, which is a place that I find is just a great place that attracts people in, gives them a way to spend their time there throughout the day. We've got the Ace Hotel, we've got the Bowery shown here as well. Some more inspirational imagery. There's the Ramble Hotel in Denver, the Hotel Emma in San Antonio. But really what we're trying to communicate here is this is a really welcoming place. It's very comfortable and hopefully is a place that folks will spend a large part of their day. Now, getting to the plans themselves. As I mentioned, we're looking at a much lower density project than the projects that surround us. We're looking at only going up to 50 feet instead of asking for to go up 100 to 120 feet as a PUD would. So the plan would be basement level and then what we are calling retail, restaurant, hotel lobby, which is what the uses I just talked to you about, with a mezzanine level, then 3 levels of hotel with a penthouse level that is a mix of hotel and or restaurant uses as well, along with mechanical uses in that penthouse level. So we have floor plans you'll see here shortly. As I mentioned, the program, we've got about a 13,000 square foot land area, about 10,000 square feet on the ground, a mezzanine level, which is a little bit less than that, same size as the ground floor, and then 3 levels of hotel, adding up to just over 47,000 square feet and at a 3.5 FAR. And then there's the penthouse at 0.4 FAR, which is not a special exception, but just is the standard. We're going up to the maximum height that the zone allows, which is 50 feet, not asking to go above that. So under its current zoning, the 50 feet is allowed. One area that for special exception is on the FAR. The PDR1 zone is permitted up to go up to a maximum of 3.5 FAR. However, certain uses are limited to a 2.0 FAR, and hotel is one of those uses. Now, David, correct me if I say this wrong. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I think one of the key reasons that is in here that you have a 2.0 FAR on a hotel use is not when you're sitting next to high density mixed use projects, but when you're sitting next to other PDR1 uses typically. David, did I get that right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll show you a couple other things as we get to it. Basement, probably not a whole lot to talk about here other than this is where we are showing bike parking, showers, lockers, those types of things, which would be requirements that we're not asking for any relief on. The building itself, we are planning to set it back at least 15 feet from the property line. And this is actually kind of taken from the building as it sits today. It sits back a little bit further than that. But we like just the feel of it and how it gives relief in that block. When we think about in the future, once JBG and Gallaudet have delivered, you're looking up the street at just a solid wall of great retail and nothing taken away from that. But we felt like setting this back, creating a really nice activated space right there on the sidewalk would just be an attractive way to handle it. In the back, we are setting back 10 feet from the property line. As I mentioned, this is based off of the easement that we have in place with JBG, Gallaudet, and Elcor. That easement provides that Edens provides 10 feet. JBG provides just over 20, almost 24 feet. So it's about a 34 foot wide private alley. This is one other area of relief. The zone does require a 12-foot setback, rear yard setback, and we are asking for a 10-foot, which would be in line with what the easement provides, and felt that was reasonable considering the large setback that we've agreed to with JBG on the other side. And just so you all know, we have met with JBG and with Elcor on these plans. We are expecting a letter of support from Elcor. Probably we'll get one from JBG as well. Both were very happy with this use, as well as what we were planning to do from the density standpoint. And one reason might be is that, let me go back to this. Obviously, with us having a lower density building, we leave a lot of light and air to the back of these buildings that wasn't going to be there with what was previously planned. Both JBG Smith and Elcor did design their buildings, assuming that we would be shared party walls at the front of the property. So they're designed without windows. Elcor did design the top 2 floors with, or did go ahead and put at-risk windows on the top 2 floors, which you'll see in these pictures that I showed you earlier. Knowing that those were potentially at-risk windows, but as you see, everybody's been planning for this to be vertical. They're happy to know that we actually won't even get up to that height with this particular proposed project. We'll only reach their 5th floor.
Good question. Do you think they will add more windows now, or do you think like that space, like would you put a cool mural on it, or what any idea what plans might be for that brick?
I don't know if they'll add windows. I think that it would be a consideration when we talked to JBG about it. They're definitely considering for their project that they would add windows. I don't know internally how this lays out for Elcor and if it makes sense to add windows or not. But if they're not, I would definitely hope to see a mural here. And that's something that we would probably talk with them about. Let's see, I'm jumping around a little bit, so I apologize. So this is the ground floor. It's kind of laid out just under, as I mentioned, we really see it all kind of integrated. There's not a set aside lobby. It's really just a place that people are coming into, and there may be a small check-in desk, all TBD exactly how it's going to lay out. On the mezzanine level, we've left out an area that will be open. So when you come in, our thought is that you'll have a high 20-foot ceiling opening. And then the mezzanine level could be a mix of uses. It could be amenity space for the hotel, which could be conference, could be gym, could be hotel rooms, or could be more restaurant space. Really, it's dependent on the partner that we go with here. We typically would not develop hotel ourselves. So just like we've done with all of our other projects in the Union Market District, we'll find someone who's really an expert in hotel development, and we'll program the retail and the restaurant side of it, and they'll take care of the hotel side of it, and we develop together. This is a typical hotel floor plate. It's just 9,824 square feet is shown here. There is, I guess, David, the next area of relief, or excuse me, of special exception that we're looking at here is related to the transition, the PDR transition, or which more simply said, probably side yard setbacks, where we are looking to have a 12-foot setback in this area. And David, can you remind me, what is that required setback?
Right, it's 25 feet when the abutting property is zoned residential or used for residential. And so here, where the neighboring properties both went through a rezoning process to allow residential use, because the underlying zoning doesn't allow residential use on those sites, but because they went through the PUD and map amendment process, those adjacent buildings are residential. So that would trigger, kind of hyper technically would trigger a 25-foot requirement.
Yeah, and so just like we were talking about with the FAR situation, it's intended for when you're next to kind of a lower density residential use, not a high density PUD project that's gone through a PUD and now has an FAR of exceeding 8.0 or higher, and goes up to 120 feet. And really just to make sure it's not impacting adjacent uses, but in this case, this is kind of what's been expected, and much lower density use. And then here's a massing plan, so you can see how it fits in with what's planned for Galludet's property and what's existing for the Elcor Morse project. And I think we've got one more that we drew in here. JBG shared their 3D SketchUp model with us, showing their future building, and thought this would be helpful site context. That, I think, completes our presentation. I mentioned, I think, 3 areas of special exception so far. The fourth is parking, and we are proposing no parking, underground parking for this building. It would be required to have 22 spaces based off of the uses, but we propose no parking for this one. And the last area, the fifth, would be the restaurant bar use on the top level with the terrace, which is what's shown here. All right, Dave, did I miss anything important? I want to make sure we point out to this group.
No, that covers the key points, Reynolds.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions?
As far as the parking, would you think that being a hotel, you'd have valet parking or anything like that as a part of the service of the hotel?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance there would be valet. I mean, we are, just so you know, this is a small hotel, right, between about 80 and 100 rooms. So we don't expect it to drive a lot of traffic. We expect a lot of that would be by ride share. But the good thing about this is that it actually sits adjacent to a number of underground retail parking or public parking spaces. And so working out an agreement with Elcor, actually even for their extra residential spaces for valet, I think is one thing we would consider doing.
And I guess I would also think I do like the setback of the kind of just the relief of having that building facade set back from the other buildings. But the other thing I would think about and I like the connection with the ground floor, the pedestrians, and opening that up and it becoming a semi-public space, really. Because I think it does need a little relief. But as far as the hotel and the function of the hotel, as far as drop off, people unloading bags out of cars, that sort of thing. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm assuming it would take place in the front, not the back loading.
That's right. And we've reviewed this with DDOT and with OP actually prior to submitting this. And so that was one area of discussion. I mean, we would have there will be parallel parking spaces right in front. This whole area is designed with the Union Market streetscape guidelines. So the development of the streetscape at that curb will follow those, and most likely would be signed for valet drop off for at least 2 spaces there. Dave, did I miss anything? Is that right?
No, that's right. I mean, we'll have to go through that, that curbside management process, Marshall, with DDOT, but they expressed initial support for that, and they like the idea that there's no curb cuts, that kind of thing. It really, there'll be the zone, it's needed for hotel operations, but it does continue to prioritize pedestrian activity, which is, kind of the bedrock of what Edens has been doing all throughout that neighborhood.
Do you know how many public parking spaces will be provided in the JBG's parcels 3, and how many public parking spaces are available in the Elcor Morse building right now?
Yeah, the Elcor Morse building, it's about 32 or 34. I can't remember exactly. Dave, I'm not sure if you know that one off the top of your head. The JBG one is planned to be one entire level. It's a very large level, approximately 150 parking spaces. It's not exactly defined yet, but that's kind of what the expectation is, that it would be about 150. That's the plans that we've reviewed with them in the past too. And then we've actually just completed behind the market building, a building which is the new black apartment building above retail, and that has 151 retail or public parking spaces in that as well. We've just completed, in total, we've now delivered, let's see, 200, about 325 underground parking spaces that are open to public use now.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
seeing a
the
lot of
only
it.
thing I would add to that is, Edens has retained Grove Slade as transportation consultant on this project, and they're doing a parking census as part of this exercise. It will get a little more granular, but that is a key part of the relief request.
Do you expect to have, because right now, the renders in the front of the building looks like an Apple store, right? Just a simple massing. Will you have more detailed renders before the BZA hearing? I know the ANC often likes to see what it's going to look like rather than just the massing rectangular
Yeah.
structure.
I can't say that we absolutely will, to be honest. We are starting a rendering process now, but we spend an enormous amount of time on that.
Yeah.
And that I don't want to overpromise. We are going to critique this thing down to such a degree that I don't know how long it will take us to get to a rendering. Hopefully, based off of the work that we've done here in the past, there's an idea of what our aesthetic might be and what quality we'll deliver. But I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to tell you if something we're definitely going to have it and we don't, in case we just can't get to where we're happy with prior to that occurring.
Okay.
But if we do, I'll be absolutely happy to share it.
And just kind of curious, is there could you have easily added another? I mean, obviously the massing is much lower than you planned. Would it have still been a BZA case if you had wanted to go taller? Would that have pushed you into a zoning commission case? I'm just curious because again, we were all surprised when we saw the renders, or we were looking at them earlier. And thank you for sending them ahead of time. And we were just like, well, we haven't seen a building of this height in Union Market being built recently. So it is. Are there zoning difficulties? And if you wanted to go slightly taller?
So Dave, I may need your assistance on this, but we were trying to not push ourselves outside of what the PDR1 zone allowed. And that was one part of the consideration. The other was that we really wanted this to feel small from the hotel. We don't want a big 200-room hotel. We want something boutique, something that is, I don't know, drives more demand that way, but just feels special. And we liked the idea of not only having the relief on the sidewalk, but just in the overall for just across. I mean, this looks directly, our corporate headquarters sits and looks at this every day.
Yeah.
So there may be a little bit of that consideration too, but I think more specifically to answer your question, yes, I think the big consideration was, can we make this work within what the zone allows today? And we felt like we could. From a financial standpoint, if we got another floor, it'd probably help us, but we felt good with going down this path and that the end product would fit in with what we wanted to see here.
I think it'll help differentiate it from the apartments next to it as well, because it is a different use. It's a hotel, and that'll help. I think people, even though it sits back, it'll be easier to find behind the building than it would if it were right in line with it.
Yeah. The idea when we sat down at the beginning of this year and really started revisiting this site and what we thought was going to be the right use here and the right kind of design, it just didn't feel like 120 feet was the right way to go.
Yeah, I think when we were first looking at it, we were kind of prepared for something quite a bit denser. So I think this is a great neighbor to these other two buildings. And I think it's a very nice move in terms of the massing. And I could see it fitting in pretty well right there. I think you could go higher and still achieve that, but I understand the going within the by right within this zone too.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, it seems like the FAR exception, which is really putting you in line with the typical FAR if it were not a hotel use, in this zone. And
Right.
then the setbacks and then the parking, those are really the exceptions you're asking for, as a very quick overview, I think.
Yeah,
Which-
that's a good summary, but one other being that the food and beverage use on the
Restaurant use.
rooftop or on the top floor.
Yeah. So, and really, is it, I guess, outside of the parking, which we've talked a little bit about, the restaurant use is there. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense with this use, I guess. And because this isn't a standard use, I think it justifies a little bit of consideration. The sizing uses, the 3.5 being within the regular use, but not with a hotel. But that being said, there's so many PUDs around it, it's hard. Contextually, it no longer almost apply. I mean, it does apply, but you got to think about it differently. But it doesn't seem like a huge ask to me. I mean, this is my opinion now. Just kind of the size stuff doesn't seem like a huge ask. And the side yards being separated from them again doesn't seem like a huge ask to me. I think just making sure that there's a solid parking drop off understanding of how that works is sort of my bigger concern. I don't know that it's a strong concern, but having a real understanding of how that works, because I agree with you. While it's a small boutique hotel, and based on the floor plate, I was guessing around what you said as far as number of units, around 80 to 100. I do think, as there's this in between of pedestrian car, environment right outside of it, and you're promoting that with the setback. I think that's the only thing that, I just want to make sure you're thinking about preparing for is how people are getting there, how they're unloading, and what's happening to those cars afterward is, my strongest point, I guess, or concern, I guess.
Yeah, and DDOT raised that when we talked about it. We talked about it conceptually how it would work, but they want to understand it clearly too. So that is on the to-do list for Grove Slade, and we expect that DDOT won't let that go. We're not that we're looking for them to. We expect that they'll make sure they get that clearly answered. Okay, yeah, and thank
If-
you.
if-
That's how we felt about it too, that the surrounding uses were no longer really PDR1 uses, and that the restriction on the FAR and didn't really seem reasonable any longer.
Yeah, like over the past few years, we've seen a lot of projects come in. They talk about how much additional parking is being provided, and so I think if you could add a slide that was like the map of showing all of the new public parking spots, it would definitely. I know the ANC is going to ask you that. It would help relieve any concerns they have, because I think there's almost an oversupply of parking. A lot of these tall buildings have huge underground parking garages. So if you could give them a kind of heat map where all the parking is available. So if there is a valet service, they've got lots of options.
Yeah, that's good advice. We can definitely do that. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions. I know the ANC, they like to review these meetings before you come before the full board. Have they given you? I know if you just applied, you probably don't have a hearing date yet. Do you know when you expect you might have a hearing?
Mid-December, early to mid-December.
Okay.
But we don't have a fixed date yet, but that's our expectation.
Okay.
We should know by the end of the week or maybe early next.
Got it. And are you asking to? Because I can relay the request. Are you asking to present to the ANC at their September or October meetings? I know you're working with them directly. Have you made a request for that yet?
I think Grant asked for the September. We figured go ahead and get there as soon as possible in case there's any feedback that we need to address in October. So yeah, if you could help us confirm that, that'd be great. We'd love to come in.
Yeah, if you could just, once the hearing date is confirmed, and then I'll let them know, like, hey, they want to present in September, their hearing date is in December. I know actually the ANC does not meet December this year. They actually, and if you're looking for, I'm sure you are, a vote of support on the project, you'd need to get it out of them in, and it's rare when they'll support it the first time you show up. But yeah, you can't wait for December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, we'll hopefully get in there for September and happy to come back October or November if we need to, whatever it takes. Okay. Well, thank you all again for making time for us today. It's a pleasure meeting you all. And if you think of any questions afterwards, don't hesitate to reach out. I think I'm not sure if everybody here has my email, but feel free to share it. I'm happy to meet or get on a phone call if there's any questions you think of after the fact.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much, Reynold. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Thank you.